Are you sick of politics? I'm kind of sick of politics. We're mid-government shutdown, seems bleak. And so I thought, let's talk about South Park. Raging Moderates can be fun. So subscribe, hang out with us. That's it. Welcome to Raging Moderates. I'm Jessica Tarlov, and today I'm joined by my friend, Pulitzer Prize-winning critic at the New York Times and host of the podcast Cannonball, which I'm obsessed with, Wesley Morris. Wesley, it's so good to have you back.
Thanks for having me, Jesse. Nice to see you.
Quite literally, anytime. Obviously, there's a government shutdown, but I don't want to talk to you about that. I want to talk about South Park first. So every week when Cannonball comes out, I'm like, yes, this is a conversation that I wanted to have. So I want to talk about South Park, which was your episode last week. Yes. And you were talking about how fearless it has been. And South Park has always been fearless, but it feels in the midst of Trump 2.0 and kind of this ever-increasing authoritarianism, that the fact that they are, making him do it with Satan and have a micro penis is like so much more severe than what you would expect before. And I'm curious what you think about the idea that like South Park is kind of like what SNL was. And if it's filling that role in society at this moment, because that's definitely what jumps out to me about it.
Yes. It's interesting because I've been thinking about what the point of SNL has been for the last 20 years, maybe.
Oh, even 20. Okay. Because I was going to say like since Tina Fey left, but you're giving it 20 years.
I mean, well, not even so much that it has no point, but like what is its point? Like existentially, what is this show meant to do, supposed to do, and how is comedy supposed to function on it? And, there'll be times I would say in the last 10 years, where I think the things that have been most interesting about that show have all been about its relationship to politics, right? Mostly in the form of the impersonations of whoever is president. But principally it is responding. Its only really interesting current event oriented responses have been along the lines of politics. And even those they're pretty toothless to me. So to go from a place like SNL to a place like South Park, where these guys, just Trey Parker and Matt Stone, they just have no fear, or if they are afraid, they're practicing comedy in a way that is willing to accept the consequences for what it is they're doing.
Yeah.
And it's also, I just think it's wise what they're doing. There's I don't think it's probably ill-advised, but as critical commentary on a national situation or international situation at this point, it's really effective, but also just as art that is in some way refracting or reflecting what is happening in the world. South Park is, it's still funny, it's still pointed, but I actually find it kind of moving now.
Oh.
Some of what happens on this show.
I cry easily, and I have not felt almost moved to tears by South Park yet. But
Mr. Mackey joining ICE didn't make you cry a little bit?
I'm kind of numb a little bit, and I'm also thinking about my next day at work, and how pissed they're going to be.
Yeah.
But I think that that's an important aspect of this, because I think of South Park at this point as almost too big to fail.
Yeah.
The gauntlet has been laid down, right? Like Paramount has basically said, it's happening. Like we know exactly what they're going to do. I mean, maybe they don't know the exact episode, what it's going to look like, but we're moving forward with this and we're not bending the knee, right? We're not going to go the way of CBS and ABC. I think in particular, the fact that they had a Charlie Kirk character, which came out a couple weeks before he was assassinated. And then remember, they took down that episode for a little bit, and
yes.
Charlie's team said, put it back up. He loved it. And I thought that that was a really important moment, first of all, about free speech and the point that his team was trying to make about that, like whatever you thought about Charlie Kirk. But then secondly, about this idea that South Park is if we're all living here freaking out about what Jimmy Kimmel is going to say tonight, South Park is up here just basically saying go fuck yourself and we're untouchable.
Yeah, I also think that they feel a responsibility, though, to be cognizant of the stakes in some way. And I also think that they're prepared. Like, I don't know, there was a big, the episode that ran last week, people were thinking like, how are they going to respond to Jimmy Kimmel being off the air, then back on the air? What is the Brendan Carr of the situation going to look like? And I like where your hands wound up in your metaphor, right?
Yeah.
I think they're operating at like 50,000 feet, right? And so the way Brendan Carr functions in this episode isn't like a real-time reflection of his decision or his threat to
They're not
Disney.
mirroring the news. They're mirroring the humans.
Well, they're mirroring the culture, right?
That's a better way to put it, yeah.
And sometimes the culture and the news sort of meet up. But in this case, I love that Brendan Carr is doing what Brendan Carr does every day of the week and is hoping his clock stops on a right time. And I think the show has sort of has felt the moral responsibility to sort of to still be itself, but to aim its too muchness, its crudeness, its meanness at a universe that can handle it, and also acknowledge the ways in which in letting the administration take over the show and the town of South Park, that it's mirroring the ways in which the administration has sort of taken over our lives in some way.
Yeah. I'm going to try this segue. I don't know if it's going to work, but moving on to Paul Thomas Anderson and One Battle After Another.
Oh, segue.
Does it work? Right? 'Cause, I mean, it's also a reflection of society. And you had a great conversation on Cannonball with Sean Fennessy about it, which I was listening to all morning.
You already listened to it?
I did. Biggest fan, but
I mean,
you said a bunch of things that stuck out to me, but one in particular was this idea that Paul Thomas Anderson in this film was really daring his peers, his cohort of filmmakers, to do something and to say something about the moment that we're in. And this anti-fascist agenda is so ever present. And, we haven't talked about Eddington. You poo-pooed it a bit in the conversation. And I think Sean Fennessy thought more like I did, that it had a lot of important things to say about the impact of COVID and where we are today culturally. But can you talk more about that feeling that Paul Thomas Anderson in this film is like daring his peers to do meaningful work that's actually reflecting how dangerous society is right now?
I mean, the way this movie struck me, I just imagine, in the same way that you can walk around New York City where we live and just see, all kinds of suffering, disarray, unhappiness alongside a lot of like wealth and joy and happiness. I feel like it's really hard I don't know how there are people living in Los Angeles who, can drive by encampments, go get a coffee and step over someone to get there when they get out of their car, can just sort of willfully be blind or remain blind to how hard life is for a lot of people who've either always lived in Los Angeles, have been, I don't know, displaced by fire, displaced by losing a job and not being able to afford a mortgage, living in Los Angeles because the place you came to Los Angeles from was unlivable, if you've come from Central America. I think that what Anderson is responding to in some ways is just the insanity of living in a place like that, the way that seeing all of this suffering while you seem to be immune to it, is affecting you. And I don't know what this changes in terms of like what his fellow filmmakers are going to be up to. But I also know this is a man who lives in a house with Black people. Some of whom are like, I don't know what they're saying, but I mean, I'm just like, you can see in the movie itself that he has opened himself up to something for the first time, in the same way that I feel like Phantom Thread is about his marriage, or about being married. I don't know if it's to Maya Rudolph or understanding philosophically what a marriage is, in a way that feels new for him. I think the the kind of Black politics of this movie, is particularly Black feminist politics, to the extent that they are operating at all in this film, are affecting him. And, changing his ability to function in the world we currently live in, with his feelers off.
Yeah, I like that. I've also been thinking about the way that you guys described that kiss, the Tiana Taylor, the open mouth, and then he says like eating an ice cream cone. I was like, this is kind of too horny for me at 9:30 in the morning listening to Cannonball, but I appreciated also how it affected you even as a gay man. You were like, okay.
No, that was hot. I mean, Tiana Taylor is
she's very sensual, everything. Yeah.
And I'm already having conversations with Black women in my life who hate this movie.
Oh.
That's going to be a whole wing of the conversation around it in the next few weeks, I think. I think this movie is really about white male weakness, and white male weakness that made by a person who maybe finds himself to be weak in some ways.
In general, or as a reflection of the strength of his Black wife?
I think maybe as a reflection, like as a person who understands his white maleness, period, right? Like as a historical experience alongside, the historical experience of Black women in this country, alongside the historical experience of, any number of Latinos and Hispanic people in this country. I think he is really, the way DiCaprio functions in this movie, I mean, he's not saving anybody. Like he can barely save himself.
Yeah.
And I think that, to the extent that I don't really think that all directors need an avatar in their filmmaking, but I think this is one of those cases in which the DiCaprio character is definitely, Paul Thomas Anderson has made some identification with this guy, as the father of a Black daughter and a person who's got a child with a Black woman.
Yeah.
He's aware. There's like a new awareness operating here, and it's just exciting.
Yeah. It was also exciting hearing you guys be excited. And, we'll see obviously how it plays out. It seems thus far box office gold. But seeing this as $150 million budget, like.
But can I just say,
you can say whatever you want.
This industrial conversation, just say, not that you are receiving it as I am, but I mean, y'all gave, like, it's Paul Thomas Anderson. If Christopher Nolan, like, why are we having budgetary concerns about a Paul Thomas Anderson movie that's got Leonardo DiCaprio in it? Like, what are we doing? Like, just let the
We're
thing
making
happen.
content, Wesley. Aren't you aware of the fact that that's just what everyone is doing at this point? Like, how could I write another story for Variety, right, that has to get out today about the implications of Paul Thomas Anderson doing something different and Leonardo DiCaprio is signing on and blah, 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 right?
Yeah, it just really does. It does make me sad. I don't know if that industry story is still in the episode about.
Yes.
Or I'm talking about what the studio's relationship to this filmmaker is.
Yeah.
But it still feels true. And I think that everybody in that town understands the importance of Paul Thomas Anderson and his talent and skills and vision. But yet nobody wants to bankroll it. I think that's going to stay true. It's not like if this movie is a hit no matter what the budget turns out to be. I don't know if that's going to change people's being like, okay, Sony,
yeah,
pony up. But I don't know, thinking about like what he's doing in terms of how much money it makes Warner Brothers back is just an interesting thing, given that we started talking about the year or Warner Brothers year with whether a Black man was going to sink the studio, right? We're talking about Sinners. It's just like strange Hollywood times too.
Definitely. And if we had more time, I would ask you about that because I wanted to talk about the tariffs too, but we don't have any more time. Our producer's in the corner saying, I'll text you about it. Or maybe you'll come back.
I'll come back.
Okay. It was so good to have you. Thank you.
I'll talk to you later.
Yeah, I'll talk to you later.